There are many murders associated with persecution, according to psychiatrists, where the perpetrator takes pleasure in the suffering of the victim, and the apotheosis of this suffering becomes violent death. Today, we will talk about one such case of frightening cold-bloodedness and cruelty. Ellie Wake was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA, and her loved ones lovingly called her Ellie. At the time of the events described, she was 23 years old. She had a fairly quiet life and was very creative from an early age. She was engaged in scrapbooking, attended dance classes, made products from base metals, and adored music. Sometime after Ellie's birth, the entire Wake family moved to Westchester, Ohio, USA. There, the heroine of our story lived with her parents and her family dog. Ellie was very inquisitive as a child, often staining her beautiful dresses with mud when something attracted her attention. She adored nature and was a tireless researcher, always trying to get to the bottom of things, despite the mess it sometimes made with her clothes. As she grew older, her interests only expanded. She tried her hand at growing plants and making hammocks. With the approach of summer 2018, Ellie obtained a cosmetology license. She wanted to earn money to organize her own business and make the world a little more beautiful, as she herself put it. Everything seemed to be going well. However, unexpectedly, during this period, Ellie began receiving offensive messages from an unknown person on social media. The account was hidden. Initially, she simply ignored them, thinking it was a bad joke. But the situation began to worsen. Ellie started receiving similar messages daily from different unknown accounts, and blocking them didn't help. Every time she blocked one, the stalker would reappear with a different nickname, sometimes even on the same day. This continued for about a year, but then the situation quickly stabilized after several blockings. The messages stopped, and Ellie thought things had calmed down. But then, the stalker escalated his tactics. Ellie received a video in which she was filmed in her kitchen. The man who filmed the video stood outside and didn't say a word. He recorded how she undressed and touched herself. Now the situation was clearly out of control. What had started as trolling now seemed truly dangerous. The stalker knew where Ellie lived, and she became scared. She went to the police, explained the situation, showed photographs, and provided the same frightening video that had shocked her. Detectives tried to figure out if the stalker might have been someone she knew. Ellie's only guess was that it could be someone named Mickey, as she remembered that years ago she had a boyfriend named Michael. They had parted on bad terms, but Ellie believed that he had no good reason for such harassment. After a year of silence from Michael, she assumed he had forgotten about her and moved on with his life. Still, she couldn't completely rule out the possibility. The police advised her to take self-defense courses and not go out at night. Despite her hopes for protection, it seemed that law enforcement was not very concerned about the situation. After all, the stalker hadn't technically broken any laws, and there was little the police could do. Ellie took the advice seriously and signed up for self-defense classes with her mother. Unfortunately, it did not stop the stalker. The harassment and threats continued almost daily. The police couldn't figure out where the messages were coming from because the stalker used a complex encryption system. It was clear he was trying to protect his privacy. The situation only worsened. After contacting the police, Ellie's mother noticed the stalker lurking near their house twice. Both times she went outside to check, but there was no sign of anyone. The police came, but it didn't help. As a result, Ellie started to become afraid of being alone. Her friends often stayed over at her house to keep her company. Despite this, the stalker appeared to have no problem getting close to her house without leaving a trace. Ellie's mental state deteriorated. She was constantly anxious and could not sleep properly. Her life had become a constant cycle of self-defense lessons, worry, and fear. Eventually, Ellie received a message from an account with a Snapchat nickname that sounded like Mickey. She immediately recalled her ex-boyfriend Michael Strauss. Ellie decided to report this to the police again, but they weren't helpful. The same officer dismissed her concerns, stating that there were more important matters to attend to than chasing ex-boyfriends. Ellie and Michael had started a relationship when she was 17. They shared a love for art, music, and parties. But the relationship quickly soured when Michael became manipulative and aggressive. He pressured Ellie into role-playing during intimacy, which she wasn't comfortable with. Realizing he was a manipulator, she broke up with him after just a month. Michael responded with aggression, and Ellie changed her phone number. For a while, everything calmed down. Ellie then began dating a new boyfriend named Nate, but the fear of her stalker prevented her from leaving the house at night. Nate offered to visit her, but she was still afraid of the stalker. He reassured her that he would protect her, and Ellie finally agreed. However, she didn't know that she wasn't talking to Nate but to a fake account pretending to be him. That night, Ellie disappeared without a trace. Her car was still parked near her house, but she was nowhere to be found. Her mother, frantic, immediately contacted the police. They found that there was no activity on Ellie's phone, social media, or bank accounts. The only lead was her communication with Nate, but when they checked his number, they found it was registered in a different city. The person behind the fake account was not Nate at all. It turned out to be Michael, the ex-boyfriend. After investigating Michael Strauss's criminal history, the police discovered a long list of offenses, including indecent behavior in public, drug use, and fraud. He had also been involved in multiple burglaries. His previous conviction for indecent behavior in 2015 had raised doubts about his mental stability. Following a court order, he had undergone a mental health assessment and was required to undergo treatment. It was during this period that he started creating fake social media accounts to stalk and manipulate young women. On August 24th, nearly a month after Ellie's disappearance, her body was found in a field near the city. The degree of decomposition was severe, and the forensic expert confirmed that she had been strangled to death. The killer had placed a plastic bag over her head and tied it loosely. It appeared to be a final attempt to hide the victim. Her body was found just a short distance from her house, where her family had searched desperately for her. The discovery of Ellie's body brought an end to the family's hopes that she was still alive. Michael Strauss was arrested the next day. The police immediately sealed off the crime scene, and criminologists were dispatched to the area around his house. Michael's arrest made headlines, but it didn't bring Ellie back. The drones that filmed the events surrounding the case helped place the probable criminal in prison on a bail of $4 million, a clear indication of the seriousness of his actions. From the outset, Michael Strauss was regarded as particularly dangerous. Authorities carried out searches at his home and at the location where the body of his last victim was discovered. Michael's DNA was found on the murdered woman's body, further cementing his involvement. Police gained access to Strauss's computer and mobile phone, which led to the discovery of several incriminating pieces of evidence. They found numerous fake accounts and phone numbers that had been regularly purchased using his IP address. These accounts were used to intimidate his victims, constantly shifting to avoid detection by law enforcement. Michael had made multiple online inquiries related to strangulation murders and had explored the potential sentences for such crimes. Additionally, he was obsessed with a notorious maniac known as the Soul of Enna, and was actively researching how to survive in prison and understand criminal behavior within high-security prisons. It was also revealed that Michael had looked into how to delete photos from iCloud without leaving traces, and during breaks in his preparations for his crimes, he would view violent pornography involving rape. Some of his online searches were so disturbing that they were not even disclosed to the public. Psychiatrists suggested that although Michael's behavior appeared extremely dangerous, some deviants take pleasure merely from filming their victims without necessarily attacking them. However, further evidence soon pointed to a darker reality. The investigation revealed that Michael had been following women, possibly stalking them during their jogging routines in city parks. Some of these women may have narrowly escaped attacks, unlike Ellie, who became a victim of a carefully set death trap. As more evidence surfaced, it became clear that Michael had pursued his victims using a car and had attacked them, though they had managed to escape. One particular piece of evidence was a map found on Michael's phone that marked a location near where Ellie's body was later discovered. While police initially searched this area without finding anything, they did not dismiss the possibility that it was a critical clue. During interrogation, Michael initially behaved calmly, offering excuses for his online behavior and the materials found on his devices. He claimed that he was preparing a script for a horror film and justified his interaction with Ellie by saying he wanted to create an authentic scene involving a stalker. According to him, he had lured Ellie into his house to film a movie, and he maintained that she had agreed to participate in a torture porn scene for several $1,000s. The two reportedly entered his basement, where Michael handcuffed Ellie, raped, and tortured her. During the strangulation, Ellie accidentally suffocated. Michael continued to assert that the filming was consensual, and that he had deleted the footage afterward. However, the forensic investigation found disturbing evidence in Michael's basement, including bloodstains and hair that matched Ellie's DNA. A bed with handcuffs was also found in the basement, further confirming the police's suspicions that Michael had turned the basement into a place of terror for his victims. Michael's defense initially suggested that Ellie had voluntarily agreed to participate in the film, even claiming that her death was accidental. They even suggested that Ellie had been suffering from depression and that her death might have been caused by an overdose. However, the prosecution provided a toxicology report showing that Ellie's blood was free from drugs or alcohol at the time of her death. This led many to dismiss the defense's arguments as a blatant attempt to manipulate the narrative. In the end, Michael eventually confessed to the murder during the trial, sparing Ellie's family from enduring a prolonged recounting of the horrific details. His confession, however, led to a plea deal that would result in a lesser sentence. Strauss was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The prosecution had pushed for the most severe punishment possible, while Michael's defense team had argued for leniency. His sentence, though, sparked outrage among Ellie's family, who vowed to attend every parole hearing to prevent his release. During sentencing, Michael expressed remorse for his actions, but his apology was met with skepticism, as his words appeared insincere. Ellie's family felt his mother's expression of regret was far more genuine. The prosecution maintained that Michael was a manipulator and deserved the harshest punishment. Despite his conviction, Michael's actions continued to haunt the investigation. After his arrest, multiple victims came forward, claiming that they had been stalked by him in the past. Police worked tirelessly to connect these reports to Michael, but many of them remained unproven. Investigators later uncovered a disturbing pattern that pointed to Michael's involvement in other possible crimes. For example, a witness reported an attack on a female runner in a park in January 2018. The attacker, described as wearing a black hoodie and mask, had dragged the woman into the bushes and threatened her, but she managed to escape. In addition, there were links between Michael and the unsolved case of Kathleen Markham, a 22-year-old woman who went missing after a party in August 2011. Her remains were discovered in 2013, and her death was ruled a murder with striking similarities to Michael's pattern of behavior. The investigation into Kathleen's death continues, as there are suspicions that Michael may have been involved in other unsolved cases. However, proving his involvement in these incidents remains a challenge. Michael's past actions and his chilling behavior have led law enforcement to view him as a potentially serial killer, and the investigation is ongoing to determine the full extent of his crimes. Thank you for watching.